and to know and to be ready to be able to ace the interview. As you know, interviews come very often, but of course, you don't always want to lose your opportunity when you're in front of an interviewer. You want to use the lowest number of interviews to be able to land a job. And to be able to do that, it doesn't happen by accident. You have to be ready for that. You have to come in prepared. You have to come in understanding what you're doing and be able to convince the person sitting on the other side, who is your interviewer, that of all the people they are talking to, of all the people they are trying to headhunt, you are their guy. Yes, that you are their person and they have to give you that job. How do you get to that point where they are convinced that you are the person they have to give that job to? That is what I want to talk to you about today. Of course, 30 minutes, I always plan to keep you for 30 minutes. 30 minutes is not enough to exhaust all the possible points and tips, right? But I just selected a few today to give you a heads up to talk to you briefly about it. We'll build other programs where we'll go into different aspects of it and into more details. That's why I need you to click and subscribe to our channels on LinkedIn. If you're watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, click on the bell. It helps us a lot because when you click on that like button, you subscribe to our channel, the YouTube algorithm recognizes and applauds you for doing something significant, which means you're watching us and you're giving us more inspiration and more courage to be able to build content like this to help you build your career. So, how do you ace your Scrum Master interview? And it's very important before I start talking about some of the tips of acing your Scrum Master interview. It's important that we just take a step back and just talk briefly about really what that role of a Scrum Master entails, right? A lot of people know a Scrum Master actually works in the IT industry. A Scrum Master is part of the IT resource pool, right? But a Scrum Master is not really a technical role. A Scrum Master is not one of those people who are coding stuff, running databases, and things like that. No. The role of a Scrum Master is more of, an organizer, kind of a taskmaster, right? You help to really provide some management capabilities around the team, right? Your role is primarily to just ensure that the team works within the Scrum framework, right? You're trying to eliminate impediments, trying to eliminate distractions, making sure that the team gets to its goal. So think about it this way, right? Within the Scrum practice, right? We have something called a sprint. A sprint is something that happens every 10 days for most companies. It might be a little bit different, but it happens every 10 days for most companies. Within those 10 days, the Scrum team decides on specific goals that they want to achieve, right? And they work together to achieve that goal in 10 days. Now, as a Scrum Master, think of it this way. You are like a coach. You are like the organizer. You are the person who makes sure that they are focused on that goal. You try to eliminate distractions. You try to make sure nothing comes in the way to distract them, to disturb the team from achieving that goal. You try to organize the team through different ceremonies like stand-up meetings, right? You try to organize the team through eliminating impediments by talking and communicating with all the Scrum team members about what is happening and if anybody is facing challenges, right? So that is really the role of a Scrum Master in a nutshell. The interesting thing about it is I tell a lot of people that the role of a Scrum Master is not a defined scientific role. Yes, you have the Scrum process, you have the Scrum manifesto, you have to understand the Scrum concepts, you have to understand all those technical things. But a big part of your job as a Scrum Master will come down to just your ability to organize, to encourage, to motivate, to lead, right? And you're leading from the back to help people eliminate impediments, make sure they can achieve the sprint goal, right? So, I'll be talking to you today about how to ace your Scrum Master interview. How do you get there and make sure you are the person they hire? It's important to understand that before you even get into the interview, there are certain things that will be beneficial to put in place. The first thing, you want to research the company that you're going to interview for. Now you've been given the job description. The job description has talked about the skill set that the company is looking for from the successful candidate. And you have about 80 70, 80% of the skill set. I mean, I'm being honest here because you will never have 100% of everything they want. No company is looking for someone who has 100%, right? You have a certain amount of that skill set and you go through the preliminary interview. The recruiter calls you after the preliminary screening and says, hey, we want to talk to you. The client hiring manager wants to talk to you. That's a very interesting call because it comes with a lot of optimism, but sometimes with a lot of anxiety because you're like, now the tire is going to hit the road, right? I'm going to talk about what I think I know, and I know that I know that I know, right? So once you've been invited for that interview, how do you first of all prepare for the interview? So during this 30 minutes, I'll talk to you about how to prepare, how to approach the interview, and after the interview, how to conduct yourself and give yourself a chance to be a successful candidate, right? So it's important to understand, as I said, research the company you're going to interview with. It's important to know what they do, how they are laid out. And with a lot of public companies today, that information is online. It's on Google, it's on LinkedIn. Just take some time. Google that company, XYZ company. What do they do? Who is the CEO of that company, right? What do that company, what business problems do that company solve? How do they make their money, right? Because why that is important, because it gives you a background of the company, most importantly, and it also gives you a chance to start understanding from a high level, might be why that company is trying to move in the direction of agile and why they need a scrum master. It's important to understand that, right? Because I've been in interview panels, not too many times, but I've been in interview, trust me, where the interviewees ask a basic question. So we're glad you are interviewing with us. Tell us some of the products that we sell. And the interviewee is like, well, I was happy, but I didn't have time to, and start rambling. Automatically, what you are telling the interviewer is that you're not even interested enough in the company to know what they do. So, number one, when you're preparing for your interview, you have to study the company you're going to interview with, know what they do, have an idea, right? The other thing is have a high level understanding of what the company thinks and why they are going to in the agile direction and try to leverage a Scrum Master. Most companies today use technologies for their company processes. What that means is they most likely do application development, right? Application enhancement. So the application they are using, they over time need to enhance that application. They need to develop new changes for that application. And because they need to do that, application development nowadays has moved a lot from the waterfall system to the agile system, and that calls now for the necessity for the role of a scrum master. Once you have a little bit of understanding of that, now you know why they need you, right? The third thing, which is also important, is before you get into that scrum master interview, you need to have a deep understanding of the concepts of scrum and the scrum process, right? I know by then you probably have taken some classes, you probably have done some hands-on work, you've done some projects, but most likely between when you last went to school and when you're doing that interview could be a few weeks, maybe a few months, and you must have forgotten some of those concepts, okay? My advice to you is go back and study on them. Understand in detail again what the Scrum concept is, what the Scrum manifesto entails, right? What are the 12 principles, right? What are the different ceremonies that are involved in the Scrum process? What is the Scrum team, right? Now, when you have that background, when you have that preparation, when you come to the interview now, you're feeling confident. I can tell you, you will feel some stress in your stomach. You will feel anxious, but at least you know that you have a certain preparedness to come to that interview and talk to the interviewer and be able to convince the interviewer why you are that guy or you are that lady for them, right? So that is now preparing for that Scrum interview. Now let's talk a little bit about what happens. How do you give yourself the best chance during the interview to be the successful candidate? The first thing I want to talk about is probably one of the most important aspects of an interview. Not only a Scrum interview, but any interview in IT. And it's something you probably have heard about. If not, you hear about it if you're interested in IT, right? It's called Tell Me About Yourself. That is most likely one of the first questions you'll be asked when an interview starts. And it could be asked in different formats. Sometimes it's tell me about yourself. Tell me about some projects you've worked on. So I looked at your resume. What have you been up to the last 6 years? Tell me about some of the things you've done before coming to try to work for us, right? These are all the different ways by which they can ask you that question. But it comes to one thing. Tell us who you are relative to this job that you are aspiring to be hired for. I need you to pay attention to that. Tell us about who you are as a professional relative to this job that you are applying for. And the reason why is because you have about 2 minutes at the most to talk about yourself. It's not enough to talk about everything you know and you've done. That's why you need to practice. Yeah, tell me about yourself. But it's 2 minutes during which the interviewer or the interviewing panel will have a subconscious decision whether it's worth their time to listen to you or not. That's how important tell me about yourself is. In fact, a lot of people call it the elevator speech. Think about walking into an elevator and you bump into Bill Gates. What are you going to tell him in 30 seconds to be interested in you and want to do business with you? That's a mindset, right? You bump into maybe, I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg or some great billionaire, and you have this business idea and you want to sell it to them, but you can't do that in an elevator because it takes 30 minutes to go from ground one to floor one to floor 10. You have 30 seconds to give them a reason to want to talk to you for that, right? So you tell me about yourself will set the tone for the interview. It will tell the interviewers what you've been able to do in a brief and presentable way. And subconsciously, sometimes you don't realize it, but the interviewers will subconsciously start making a decision whether this might be their candidate or not, whether this person is really worth their time, whether this person might have what it takes. Of course, during the 30 minutes, most likely, which most interviews are set for, they'll ask you some other questions to understand you more. But their tell me about yourself story is important. I tell people if you don't work on anything else enough, work on your tell me about yourself. Take time, write it down. Practice it in front of a mirror. Use the script. Read it out. Talk to yourself in front of a mirror. Smile. Imagine yourself in an interview and practice. Because that opening 2 minutes of tell me about yourself will might make or mar your opportunity for the job. Another thing during the interview, answer questions from the mindset of adding value. When they ask you your Scrum questions during the Scrum interview, you want to respond to those questions in a way that demonstrates to the employer or the interviewer that you're going to add value to their company, right? They might ask you a question. Tell me about the time when you've been able to solve multiple complex demands on the Scrum team. Okay. Now you don't only want to answer that question, but you also want to show that not through that you are able to multitask, you are able to handle different priorities, but you are able to most importantly prioritize, right? So you are telling the interviewer that of course in the Scrum space as a Scrum Master, there are many demands on the team's time and on the team's resources and on the team's energy. But we prioritize what to work on based on the priorities of the EPIC and the PI for that quarter or something. But you talk based on value and how you are able to provide value to the team and by extension to the company, right? The other thing you want to focus on during an interview, right? You want to also provide real life experiences. Remember, numbers tell, stories sell. What an interviewer is trying to understand by interviewing you for a Scrum Master role, it's not only that you have the technical knowledge and the technical skills, you know about the Scrum process, the Scrum manifesto principles, and all of that. No, they also want to see if you're creative, you can think on your feet, right? They also want to see if you you have had experiences that can be transferred to help in their own business, right? So when you respond to the question, you want to talk about some real life experiences. I personally, all along through my career, whenever I interview, I never respond with a single word because you will hardly ever get a question that requires yes or no. Once in a while, you might. It might be a direct question. I see on your resume you live in Texas. Is that correct? Yes. Even at that, I never say yes. I say, yes, I do live in the great state of Texas. Would you like to move to Texas, right? Or something. Anyways, I'm just kidding with that. But I'm just saying, when you're interviewing for a Scrum Master role and you ask questions, it's important, if you can, to give real life experiences and examples that demonstrates your quality of skill. That also helps the interviewer to have a better understanding and a better visualization of what you can bring to the table, right? That's important. Another thing, when you are interviewing, speak slowly, coherently, and clearly. The reason why is because the IT industry is probably, I don't have statistics, but it's probably the most diverse industry you will ever belong to. You have people from everywhere in the world with different accents, with different tones, with different voices, and with different ways of speaking. So if you speak too fast, it will be a challenge to understand you. I take myself as an example. I'm a fast talker. But I've learned over the years in the industry to speak slowly, to articulate my words very clearly, and to try as much as possible to be coherent. Remember, an interview is only 30 minutes, okay? Those people, it could be a single person or a panel of 4 or 5 people, they have taken 30 minutes out of their schedule at work to come and talk to you. They don't want nobody rambling. They don't want you coming there and thinking of stuff and talking and going back and forth. They want somebody who can share their ideas coherently, who can be able to explain things in a clear, simple, slow, and concise way that is understandable, and they can quickly move on to the next thing. So it's important to speak slowly, it's important to speak very, very clearly, and it's also important to be coherent. Another key thing about a Scrum Master interview, what is really going to help you, and this is an X factor for you. It has nothing to do with knowledge. It has nothing to do with your know-how. It has nothing to do with your skill set or the amount of skills or knowledge you have. It has everything to do with passion. If there is any role in the IT industry that you need to come with passion for, it's a Scrum Master role. And I'm not saying get all this excited and you're talking and shaking. No. But when you talk about your job, you talk about your experiences, you don't want to talk as if you're not passionate about it. Let's take a simple example. Yeah, hi. Let's say I'm interviewing for a Scrum Master role. Hi, Gustav. Um, can you tell us about yourself? Well, thank you. My name is Gustav, and it's a pleasure to be here. I've been a Scrum Master for the last 6 years. I've worked for multiple different companies in different industries. Tell me, would you want to hire somebody like that? You certainly don't want to hire somebody like that because the person doesn't even demonstrate any kind of interest, passion, or joy or love for what they do, right? You want to come with passion because part of what you'll be doing as a Scrum Master, people will tap off your passion. People will tap off your energy. Your team will tap off your energy and your inspiration. Part of the job you do as a Scrum Master, consciously or unconsciously, you motivate your team. You don't have to be born a motivator. You don't necessarily have to be an expert. No, but you have to be that person where when they look up to, they can feel the zeal to work harder. They can feel the desire that the team wants to achieve a goal. And we are going to achieve this goal no matter what. Because it's difficult to achieve goals in the IT industry. Application development is challenging. Things will always go wrong. Somebody's out of the office, they need a file, they are not available to get it. Something is going wrong. The machines might not work the way they were programmed to work. So you're working with people who are trying to solve problems. And when they're trying to solve problems, the least they need is somebody who dampens their spirit, is somebody who brings negative, who makes them discouraged, right? So you have to bring passion, and that passion will be important to be seen during the interview. Your interviewer wants to know that you are excited, you are ready, You want to work for their company, but most importantly, you love being a Scrum Master. You love being an Agile practitioner. You love what you do. You love coming to work every day, right? I don't care if you woke up that morning to get to that interview and you didn't feel good on the highway, you lost your tire, or before getting in your office to get on Zoom for the interview, you had a fight with your partner. Nobody cares. Things happen in life. You have your 30 minutes to make an impression. You better use it the best way you possibly can. And I can tell you what, passion is a big contributor to that. Okay. Another important thing during the interview you need to keep. I know a lot of people, I see a lot of mentees, I see a lot of people approach interviews like it's an interrogation. Interviews are not an interrogation. You haven't committed a crime, you haven't done nothing wrong. In fact, what most interviewees don't realize is that the interviewer is so desperate to hire you. Otherwise, they won't be spending their time talking to you. By the time they're talking to you, they've probably talked to many other people. So they are frustrated, they're tired, they are just desperate. They want somebody to come in and help them. All right. So what happens is that come in with the mindset of not an interrogation, come in with the mindset of a conversation. Because that is exactly what you are doing. You're going to be having a conversation with your future colleagues. You're going to be having a conversation with people you'll be working with. You're going to have a conversation with people you belong to the same company with. So they're not interrogating you. They're just trying to understand what you've done. They're just trying to understand if your skills is a good fit. They're trying to understand if you're the kind of person they would like to work with and you like to work with them. So what I tell a lot of mentees and a lot of people trying to interview and get jobs in the IT industry is that remember that the company needs you. You need them too, because of course you need a job, but they need you. So a lot of interviewers are coming to an interview with the mindset of, oh, I hope this is our person. Just give us a reason to confirm our fervent belief that you are the person we've been looking for, right? So when you think that is an even you think about it more like an interview or like an interrogation, you get tense, you get anxious, you start acting, you lose sight of what you're thinking, you lose your train of thought, you get confused, and you don't do a good job. Think about it as a conversation. What is the worst that can happen in an interview? Worst case scenario, they don't hire you. Fine and good. Life goes on. You move on to the next opportunity, right? So don't put that kind of pressure on yourself. Think about it as a conversation. Approach it as a conversation. Now, I'll talk about one last tip when you are interviewing, and then we move on to something else because we can certainly cannot go through all. The last, but one of the most important tips when you are interviewing for a Scrum Master role, use the Scrum lingo. I cannot tell you how many times I need to repeat this to mentees and people like coach. We coach through Icon IT to get jobs. Use the Scrum lingo. There is a Scrum language. Don't use your own words. Try to use Scrum lingo, time boxing, team, capacity, servant leader, acceptance criteria, epics, sprint backlog, backlog grooming, right? Definition of done, planning, impediment. Don't say blockage. I've interviewed people where they tell me when my team has a blockage, there is no word in Scrum or in Agile practice like blockage. There is a word called impediment. There is a word called distraction, right? Those are the things that demonstrates that you know what you're talking about, that you know exactly what you're saying. And not only that, that you are who you say you are. All right. You want to use words like transformation, retrospective, stakeholder, PI planning, and all those words. Those are important words to be used during interview. Yes, you might be a great English speaker, but please, for God's sake, keep your vocabulary out of the door. Okay, when you're doing a Scrum interview, use the Scrum lingo, use the Scrum language. Thank you for joining. If you're joining us right now, thank you for hopping on. I just want to remind you, go ahead and subscribe to our channels, right? Go ahead and Be able to subscribe to our YouTube, our Facebook channels. Help us share this message, share our videos, like our videos, subscribe to our community. You can also book a one-on-one appointment. You will talk to me or some other member of the team if you are interested in any of our programs. If you are interested in becoming a Scrum Master, short 6 weeks will take you through, a novice all the way to a skill and able to perform professional within 6 weeks, 2 nights a week. If you're interested in learning more, book a one-on-one appointment with us. Click on that link. The link will also be in the message section. Book a one-on-one appointment and you can answer your questions. And just to let you know, this one-on-one appointment, there is no commitment. You don't have to pay nothing. You don't have to commit to do the program. You don't have to commit to even deal with us after that. But it's just an informational session. You have free one-on-one time to talk to me and be able to ask any question you might ask around the program you want to do, leading you up to your career in six figures, right? So during the interview, let me just recapitulate quick. Tell me about yourself, important, right? Answer questions with the mindset of how to add value, right? Provide live work experiences if you can. Speak slowly and very clearly, okay? Bring passion to the table. Approach the interview with the mindset of a conversation and not an interrogation. Use the Scrum words. I cannot insist enough on that. Please use the Scrum words. Sprint backlog, all those Scrum terminologies, right? Use them. Use all those agile terminologies. It's important. Now, you prepared for the interview and you came in, you've gone through the interview, and at the end of the interview, usually the interviewer will ask you an important question. Do you have any questions for us? That now is technically after the interview, right? Do you have any questions for us? By then, they must have gone through the questions that are prepared to ask you. They must have already done an evaluation to see where you are and if you are fit for them. And then they want now to ask you if you have any questions for them. It's very important. I've been on interview panels where we ask the candidate, hey, do you have any questions for us? No, I'm fine. I have no questions. A lot of times at the beginning of the interview, the interviewers might give you a brief background of the company and the business. That might answer some of your questions. But please make sure to always have a question at the end to ask the company and an intelligent question for that, right? For example, do you have a question for us? There is always a question you should be able to ask the interviewer. Ask a question to understand what success in your role looks like. For example, sir, thank you for the opportunity for bringing me into interview for this role. Of course, like every person, I'm optimistic. I hope I'll be your candidate. But I have a question for you. In this role within your company, what does success in this role look like? This question is important because it gives the interviewer a chance to talk about what would define success for that role. Even if you don't get hired for that role, but most likely it will give you some additional tips on how to approach the next interview based on what most roles like that are looking for, right? Another thing is you can ask where you're going to fit in the team. If I'm the one hired for this role, how many people are going to be part of the Scrum team, right? Who am I going to be working with? What does our team do to contribute to the overall success of the company? You can ask intelligent questions like that, right? Another very critical thing to remember at the end of the interview, thank the interviewer or the panel. Make sure you thank them for giving you a chance to interview for that position. Ask them what the expected next steps is going to be. What should be your expectation? Are you going to hear back from them? Or if you don't hear back from them, you should assume that they don't want to hire you. But ask that question. It's an important question. They will usually tell you the next steps, most likely. We'll go back, we're interviewing some other candidates. We'll go back and do an evaluation and we'll let you know if we're moving forward with you for the next round of interviews or not. But ask that question, right? The last but most of the very important thing I want to say about the post-interview period. If you have the phone number to the recruiter, or if you have the email to the recruiter, after the interview, go back and send a thank you email to the recruiter, thanking them for giving you an opportunity to interview for that role. Right? Now, when you do that, like every human being, you want to be appreciated. The second thing is that usually is something that doesn't happen too often. So it will keep you on their minds and it will give them a naturally positive feeling about you as a candidate. And the third thing is that it opens the door now so that after 3, 4, 5 days, maybe a week at the most, if you haven't heard anything back from the interviewers, you can reach out to that recruiter or that person who is in charge of bringing the candidates and say, hey, it's been a week, I haven't heard back from you. I understand you people are busy and you're probably talking to a lot of other candidates, but I usually always like to close the loop on every interview I do. Can you please let me know how my performance was and what the go forward plan is for me? You go ahead again and reiterate. Just to remind you again, I'm available to start on a 2 weeks notice and I'm willing and able to get started in 2 weeks. Right? That brings you back on their mind. Now, if they had made a decision that they were not going on with you, at least they'll have now a chance to send you a message to tell you, hey, we're sorry, we're not moving forward with you, we're moving forward with other candidates. But what that does is it's giving you some closure to that opportunity. Now you know that opportunity is done and you respond to that email. Thank you for letting me know. Please keep me in mind for future opportunities because in the IT industry, you will always meet people you've met before in different companies because people change companies all the time. So you want to make sure you are always on the optimistic side. You are always on the positive side and you want to make sure you leave a great impression, right? So basically, these are just some of the tips I wanted to talk to you today about how it's going to help you to ace your Scrum Master interview. There are a lot of other tips, and we're going to build other programs to talk about this. That's why you need to stay in touch. That's why you need to click on our links and join our communities because we have these live shows twice a week on Wednesdays and on Fridays. And we talk about great different topics. We don't only talk about how to ace your interviews, we tell you how to carry yourself on the first day of work as a Scrum Master. We tell you exactly how to start managing a new team. We tell you on some of the technical details of how to be successful as a Scrum Master. In addition to that, this is just related to the Scrum field, right? The agile careers. We also have other programs like AWS, like Oracle Database Administrator, right? Where we also talk to you on live shows like this on different pertinent information pertaining to those different programs. So we certainly always appreciate you taking the time to watch us. We always love when you come online to learn. If this doesn't apply to you, please don't just go away. Share this link, share our video with somebody who might benefit from that. Of course, not everybody's cut out to be in the industry, but boy, if you're not in the IT industry today, I don't know what industry you are in, right? Because that is where it is happening. That is where all the movement between now and the next 20 years is going to be. If you're not in that industry, you are missing out on something, right? We talk about an industry where average pay is usually somewhere above 6 figures. Yes, but most importantly, you do the math and you see yourself in the millions in a few short decades, right? So we appreciate you spending the time with us. I hope it was valuable today, this information. Go ahead. The video will be uploading on YouTube almost immediately and all the other platforms you are watching from. Feel free to watch it again. But most importantly, share with your friends, share with your family, share our links. Click on the link on the screen, book a one-on-one appointment. Join us for more information. We'll be able to give you critical and very important information on how you can continue to build your career and become a successful Scrum Master or a successful database administrator, a successful AWS practitioner, a successful security analyst, whatever part of IT you want to join. We'll be able to give you information, coach you, and direct you in the way that will best be a best fit for you and your career. Right? So thank you for taking the time. We appreciate you. Please stay tuned. Next week, Wednesday, we'll be back with another edition of our live show. We'll give you the our flyers online to tell you exactly what the topics are, what we're going to be talking about. And periodically, also, we invite guests into our studio, people who have different levels of experiences, people who are well versed in their industries, people who are well versed in Scrum, in AWS, in Oracle, in different technologies to just come and have a chat. And I can tell you something, and I tell you this We live in the best time you could ask for to be alive because information is no longer as difficult to come by as it used to be, number one. But number two, and most importantly, mentorship is free. There is nothing more important in growing and building a career than having mentors and people you can listen to, people you can talk bounce ideas to, people you can learn from. That is why we also invite other people who have experiences, deep knowledge, deep understanding, deep experience to come on the line and join us. And we'll ask them questions. And when they respond to those questions, we'll have a chat with them. And during those chats, you'll be able to pick up things that will help you. But the one thing I always encourage everyone watching us to do is to share this information. It's no use if you take it and keep it to yourself. If you think if you're going to share it, it's going to deplete your possibilities, you are deceiving yourself. The cake is too big, okay? The IT cake is too big. You cannot do it alone. There are many jobs out there. You will get a job. All the hundreds of people you share this information with, they are going to get a job. And the people they share with, they are going to get a job too. So don't be afraid. Share this information and invite your friends, invite your family to join this caravan, to join our different communities on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, so that they can stay abreast, right? And I'll leave you with this, which I always do all the time. I don't know your circumstances. I don't know where you were brought up. I don't know how you grew up. I don't know what challenges in life you had to overcome. I don't know what traumas you might have to have dealt with in your life that might have convinced you in one way or the other that you are not capable, that you're not strong enough, that you're not smart enough, that you are not ambitious enough, that you are not intelligent enough to achieve your goals in life. Whatever it is that forced you or subconsciously convinced you to believe that, I want to tell you something today, that you are enough, that you are capable, you're strong, you're able, and boy, you are a winner. So go out there, be blessed, never stop being a blessing, and most of all, be well. You take care of yourself, and we'll talk to you again pretty soon. Have a good one. Bye for now.